Hi, I'm Jane, and this is the very first time I've tried streaming from Duluth, Minnesota. I would call myself a persistent techno person. In other words, I don't have a lot of background, but I have persistence in learning how to do it. What is the purpose for me wanting to live stream? I'm trying to tell you as I get my mic into focus. Well, the fact of the matter is I want to, I don't seem to be in the middle of the camera. I want to put my radio show on YouTube for a couple of reasons. One of my co-hosts is having trouble listening to BlogTalk Radio from his mobile phone. Either the website crashes and then he has to start all over again, and he can't start and stop the radio show when he wants to. So this is my first attempt at live streaming, and I'm going to cut to our very first episode of Project Veritas. This is a multi-layered show in which we're going to use a lot of parallel comparisons from decade to decade. We're also going to go into the background of Project Veritas and reach back all the way into their activity, what they did with Acorn in 2009. And I'm also bringing up a subject from the 70s in which I lived through, in which when the newspapers were the Bible and there weren't multiple online or video sources everywhere. So you're going to see a comparative analysis of someone like Daniel Ellsberg, who leaked confidential Department of Defense papers to the Washington Post and the New York Times, and how that had an impact, versus Project Veritas, who only has a ideological motivation into destroying public sources of knowledge such as legitimate newspapers and tearing them apart to get their message across, which is destroy the liberal agenda. So I'm going to attempt to wire in my radio show, and hopefully it's at the acceptable volume. So this is the end of the intro. John's music's playing.
Hi, I have Don and Albert in the queue, and I'm going to start the show out with this brief introduction and then play a quick video. So, I listened to a long segment on NPR about Daniel Ellsberg's involvement with the Pentagon paper and how he secretly hid thousands of documents over a period of over a year, also doling out some of the documents to his friend's house for safekeeping in case the FBI ever busted him. Well, eventually he released the papers to the New York Post, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Boston Globe, and the St. Louis Dispatch, and all this stuff came out about Nixon. We're going to cover that in the second half of the segment. There was really radical information in there saying that Nixon wanted to nuke Vietnam, that he tried to do a...
Stay tuned, because I'm just going to see if that clip worked. There's another thing I want to mention about our show. We've been on the air for 7 years. I started out with the Ernest Radio Network, and Ernest and I together, we interviewed a lot of cool people. We interviewed Bob Groff, a Vietnam War protester who was a Jesuit who spent a year in prison. Ernest was able to interview Macy Gray one-on-one, not in person, but over the phone. Ernest and I interviewed the Westboro Baptist Church founders. There were other musicians and artists like Ndombi that he interviewed. Recently, I've had a lot of good guests on my show from Westchester, New York. I'll try to rack my brain. But right now we have 5 co-hosts. We have Albert from the Palm Springs area. We have Ben from the Puget Sound. We have John Yoder from Santa Monica and Don Gallimore, who is the NAACP co-chair for the Reno Sparks, and his wife is the president, and he's also the sergeant at arms for the Democratic Party, and he's also a lobbyist. Ben has a lot of common sense and know-how, and we focused the last, I'd say, 4 out of 8 episodes on the Bundy case. He's been researching it tooth and nail for 2 years. I am going to air those episodes too. With that, I'm going to stop this stream and see how the experimented work, and then I'm going to bring you the rest of the Project Veritas episode. I hope you're enjoying yourself.